All right, we've configured our PSSDiag. Now I want to show you what it looks like to actually run the tool. So I've actually got, I've saved out multiple configurations here. I'm going to go into the general configuration that I saved. Normally you can just go and find, and there's multiple command files and .sql files and executables in here. What we are looking for is the PSSDiag.cmd. Now normally you can just double click it from here and it'll run just fine. It's actually, now it will create an output folder inside the folder where you have the tool. And that's by default, and you can have it created under different names, or you can rename the output folder after you've used it, so the next time you run the tool, it won't overwrite it. In this case, I'm going to tell it just to overwrite the output folder. That is fine by me. And when I told it to do that, I got a message in red and the tool terminated. So this is a little bit unusual, but I wanted to cover it in the video in case you see something similar. So it looks like the tool just failed. Now, again, we created an output folder by running it. So I'm going to go into the output folder. Now this is where you're going to expect to see all the normal files that are gathered from running the PSSDiag itself. And you also have an internal folder. The internal folder is going to have the logs from the tool that will tell us how the tool is running. So if I go in here and look at the console.log, I'll be able to see what all the messages that I should have gotten from the command prompt. And I can see from here that it's actually complaining I have to be a member of the administrators group. Now that's why this tool failed. I didn't have sufficient permissions. Now I do have administrative permissions on this machine, but I think that what it's complaining about is that I need to be in an elevated command prompt or PowerShell prompt to actually run this tool. This is not a thing I've seen a lot. Maybe this is something to do with security on Windows 10 specifically, and maybe you'll be more likely to see it on Windows 10. I'm actually running this on a Windows 10 laptop, but in that case, this is simple enough to get past. I'm going to go towards PowerShell here, and I'm going to right-click on PowerShell, and I have an option there to run as administrator. So I've already done this, so I've got a command shell prompt up and a PowerShell prompt up. Now here is just a normal PowerShell prompt, and you can see here it says administrator at the top. So this is my administrative prompt. I am going to use it to actually run PSSDiag directly from here. And it's going to again ask me if I want to overwrite, and I'm going to say yes. Now we're going to get a bunch of messages, and you can see in green, it's telling us to wait until the collection started message appears before we attempt to reproduce our issue. So it may take 5-10 seconds for this to start up. It may take a minute or more for the startup to complete. So I'm going to wait until we get the all clear message indicating that it started. Then I'll try to reproduce my issue. And I've got an activity script that I'm going to run in background to generate some activity for us while we gather data. If you have an issue that is, say, and if you have something that you can specifically reproduce, that's great for this tool. Start up the tool, run your script, run your query, whatever's causing a problem for you, and once it's complete, you can just shut down the tool. If it's something that is inconsistent, if it's something you don't like, a timeout from an application and you don't know when it's going to happen next, you might need to start up the tool and leave it running for a longer period of time. You might need to leave it running for half an hour, or more. And in those cases, you'd be more likely, of course, to go with a lighter configuration so you don't just get gigs and gigs of data. Now, this is started up. It took about a minute for it, actually a little over a minute. That's kind of unusual, but I'm running this from a laptop after all. So now I can start reproducing my data, reproducing my issue, and I'm going to run some activity in the background here. And I'm going to let that run for just a minute, and I'll just skip time for us a little bit. But I'm going to let this run for a minute so we actually have some data captured in our output folder, and maybe we'll take a look at some of that in future. All right, so I've gathered enough data. I've hit Control-C. The tool is now shutting down. It will take some time, and can take some time, to gather the error logs, to gather the event viewer logs. It has a number of SQL scripts that it normally runs specifically at shutdown. So even while it's shutting down, it's gathering some additional data at that point that might cause it to take a little bit longer to finish up. So we should expect that to take typically longer for it to shut down the PSSDiag than to start it up. So don't get impatient and try to just close the window. That actually could be specifically bad. If we don't allow it to have the time to shut down normally, you're going to be missing out on some things like the event viewer logs, potentially the SQL error logs. But here's the big one. If it doesn't shut down the profiler traces or the Xevent traces, then they may just keep gathering. And if they keep, those are the things that are going to be gathering the largest amount of data from PSSDiag. And if those just continue on, you're going to notice problems from that filling up your drive or whatever as that tool continues if you don't shut it down another way. So be patient, let this shut down for a minute. This is the example of actually running the tool for PSSDiag, and look out for more videos, and we'll probably actually take a look at some of the files from the output itself.